Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on the Arrowverse as a whole, which includes Superman and Lois mainly, but just Arrowverse as a whole within the DC TV stuff. So we're about to be in the hype portion of the Arrowverse season as we have Superman and Lois getting into the middle of their respective seasons so far, where a lot of things start to play out to a larger degree, and then we have the return of The Flash Season 8 after their longer than usual break in the next week and a half or so from when this video will be coming out. Now, despite the excitement of having these two shows on back-to-back nights, that being Tuesday and Wednesday, one of the things that is always being tossed up is crossover, and, well, crossover. Now, though we all love Superman and Lois Season 1 and what we have had so far in Season 2, though it is only a third of the way through it, one of the main criticisms, if not the only real criticism brought up consistently, was, the lack of connection or just really any acknowledgement to, any degree of the universe it sits in. Of course, we had this version of Superman played by Tyler Hoechlin debut in Supergirl Season 2's premiere, with him then appearing in 3 episodes total throughout that season, with him then showing up in 2 crossovers afterwards before the premiere of Superman and Lois. Those crossovers, of course, being Elseworlds and then Crisis on Infinite Earths, with Elseworlds, of course, being where Lois Lane, played by Bitsy Tulloch, first debuted. And though some would say that Superman and Lois is a Supergirl spin-off, I would just say it's just an Arrowverse spin-off as a whole, as the foundations were set up within Supergirl and then Elseworlds and then Crisis on Infinite Earths the following season, and even like Lois Lane technically debuted in a Flash episode, so it's her character a Flash spin-off. So just an Arrowverse spin-off in my opinion. But as I said, it's an Arrowverse spin-off, but that's a thing people bring up and I wouldn't say complain about, but definitely take note of, and that's that there isn't really much connectivity to the Arrowverse. Well, last weekend there was the Fan Expo event in Vancouver, which of course is where Superman and Lois films. And during the Superman and Lois panel, a fan actually asked the question about the lack of Arrowverse tie-ins and references and connections, and this is what Tyler Hoechlin actually said in response to that. I would say there are so many different layers to that, especially for us last year having COVID. I know there were ideas of doing crossovers and they just got scrapped right away. I mean, even keeping your own production up and running was so difficult that it just got completely squashed. For us, at least for me, the way I've approached it from the beginning, again, these are all conversations that go on between all kinds of people in LA and everywhere else. For us, we kind of just take care of what we're taken care of day to day. For me, knowing what Bitsy and I had done in the previous shows and how we had our infant children before coming to this world of having 2 teenagers, I just had to make sense in my mind how we got there. And for me, it was a clean slate because otherwise I'd be asking questions, what happened to our infant child? So for me, just to clarify and make it easier for me to get into what we were doing, I just cut it and started over. So whatever that ends up being, that's the thing with TV too. With film, you know where you start and where you finish. With TV, it's constantly evolving. So it might be one thing today and it might be something completely different tomorrow or next week or a year from now. So to say anything definitively, I know it's always annoying we don't do it, but it wouldn't be doing justice to it all. Because we don't know. It's never like a final answer until the show is over and then you get reboots, hey? It never ends. So for us right now, just at least the way I'm approaching it, it is that for me, the only memory I have as this Clark is that this has been my life with these guys, and that's how I'm approaching it. So who knows? Time will tell with the rest. So that was actually a pretty well put out answer, to be completely honest. And I think it's been something that, certain publications like your TV lines and your entertainment weeklies, when they've had chances to interview, there hasn't really been an answer like that. So Tyler actually gave a bit more of an open and honest answer to a fan that was actually asking the question, not some random journalist. Now, the only thing that has to be brought up before we jump into the general discussion that centers around what Tyler just said and the overall question of connectivity with the Arrowverse is that Todd Helbing did say that in Season 2 of Superman and Lois, we would start to see more connectivity with the larger Arrowverse and the larger universe as a whole. Now, he didn't really give a hint as to what that would be. Now, I think many thought that the name drop of Central City last season and Jonathan's ex-girlfriend being the daughter of a villain that's in prison there, might have something to do with that and it might have suggested something. But outside of that moment, there were no real suggestions as to what connections we could see based off what Todd Helbing was alluding to, who is, of course, the showrunner for Superman and Lois. Now, while Tyler does talk about it's a clean slate, I think that that's actually important that they do a clean slate because they were really the only show that had these characters that had existed in the Arrowverse for years and years and years that then were given a show where you're meant to develop those characters, as the focus, as well as the characters around them and everything like that. So I think going with a somewhat clean slate was the best way to go. I know it might go over or trip over certain things that happened previously, but I think it really only matters if they trip over stuff that's post crisis. A lot of the stuff that they have tripped over and changed and stuff, like we saw even just out of the pilot, like the proposal scene and the suit, that's all pre crisis. I know there was some stuff post crisis where he's in that old suit. And in a perfect world, they would have had the new suit done by then because I think by the time they actually started filming Crisis or were done with it, just after they actually greenlit Superman and Lois. So in a perfect world, he'd have that new suit. But there's actually not much the show has done that's wiped out anything that has been established post-crisis. They established the twins post-crisis. That was a change. So they haven't actually really stepped on too many toes in regards to post-crisis timeline stuff. It's just that they haven't really acknowledged other things that do exist post crisis. Now, for those that do say that Superman and Lois isn't in the Arrowverse and the show makes that clear, they've sort of done the opposite because Diggle appears in season 1. Diggle references Crisis. He references Superman being there with your green arrows and everything like that. Diggle straight up references that. You got to remember, the Superman and Lois writers wrote that. It's not like David Ramsey came in and went, I'm going to create this scene. I'm going to ad lib. That's not what happened. The Superman and Lois writers wrote that. They didn't have to. I thought it was sort of interesting that they decided to go down this route where Diggle mentions Crisis and everything like that. He could have, gone off some other experience and like another thing that he'd done in his life, but they specifically used Crisis as a reference point. So they're not shying away to it, completely. I think one of the big issues is what was happening when Superman and Lois started. So to go to that, the other shows don't really reference each other that much. Like sometimes you won't even notice if there is a reference. Like in season 7 of The Flash, for example, the only major reference I can remember to the Arrowverse as a whole is when Diggle actually shows up and is in an episode, which is like what we saw in Superman and Lois season 1. However, to refer back to what I was saying there about like what was happening during Superman and Lois season 1, multiple showrunners involved with the Arrowverse did mention in various interviews throughout the seasons that followed the pandemic that they were avoiding unnecessary references to the other shows and their characters to not step on canon in the timeline of events because the shows were running at different times and there wasn't, most importantly, an annual crossover which tends to line them up in some way or at least provide a point in which they can reference certain events happening back to. So season 1 of Superman and Lois and the lack of referencing does get a pass in my opinion in season 1, outside of the lack of mentioning Kara or Supergirl, which is a bit odd, or even just having photos of her clearly in their house. Though Bitsy Tulloch, I think it was, who plays Lois, said that there was a deleted scene from season 1 which had Lois picking up like a framed photo of herself, Clark, and Kara on the Kent farm when they are moving. So I think it's either when they're moving from Metropolis to Smallville or when they're unpacking after arriving in Smallville, Lois picks up a photo and it's Clark, herself, and Kara. And that's like the connectivity to Supergirl, at least acknowledging Kara. Now, you can make your own theories about why that scene was deleted because it seems like it was a quick one and wouldn't have changed things too much. But I think if there isn't some clear reference at some point in season 2 of Superman and Lois to the larger Arrowverse as a whole, I'm not saying Barry Allen has to run into, or the Flash has to run to Smallville and help, but just some sort of reference to other events going on, then maybe there could be a cause for concern from Arrowverse fans. But with that whole thing, it is a wait and see. Now, Tyler does talk about like a planned crossover that was scrapped, and this was the Batwoman and Superman and Lois crossover that was set up and advertised and unfortunately was cancelled. Now, he says it was scrapped right away. I don't think it was actually scrapped right away, but I think they got close to filming the first season after the initial lockdown and all of that. And then they realized it was never going to happen with all the COVID protocols and everything like that. And you also had to add in the fact that Batwoman swapped lead characters as well. They'd set up this event, I think, when either Ruby Rose was still on the show or they were probably still planning to just recast Kate Kane and not create a new character to take over the Batwoman mantle. So the fact that they swapped lead characters and then the COVID thing, it was just not going to work. But of course, we did have the Armageddon event on the Flash this season, which was like a mini crossover just on the Flash. So Superman and Lois could have maybe done a crossover with someone. But once again, the whole Batwoman thing might not have worked because, well, how do they set that up where Batwoman and Superman have a crossover, but the Flash and Superman don't? Like, if there's a threat that would need Superman's help, wouldn't the Flash be there as well? Wouldn't that almost be like a mini Justice League thing like we saw at the end of Crisis come together? Like, what's going on there? Now, Tyler was asked to be on Armageddon as Superman, but it's hard to get the lead character of a show to guest star in another. Batwoman did, but we saw the episode she was in. She was in like, what, 2 or 3 scenes? It would have maybe been like a day or 2 of filming. Like, I think Superman only being an Armageddon for that long would have probably just annoyed people more than if he just didn't show up, especially if they hyped up Superman being in there through advertising and all that. Now, Tyler Hoechlin was on Teen Wolf when Eric Wallace, who's the Flash showrunner, was a producer on there. So there's a connection there, and I think we will see Tyler Hoechlin appear as Superman on the Flash at some point, if it's not just a crossover in general, like for the whole Arrowverse, or just an individual Flash episode. I think it will happen. It's just a matter of when. Now, in regards to future crossovers, it's hard because I think one of the biggest difficulties now is the fact that you have Flash and Legends that go to Netflix after the season, and then you have Batwoman, Superman and Lois, and even Stargirl, they go to HBO Max after their seasons air. And I don't know if it's the best thing to have, post-season, your shows are split on 2 different streaming services, and then you do a crossover and there's missing episodes, or people have to jump streaming services to watch all the episodes. Maybe they want to avoid that, and that's why they did the Batwoman and Superman and Lois crossover for last season, or plan to, because both of the shows are on HBO Max, so it's easier for them to just cross over rather than like a Superman and Lois and Flash crossover where the 2 episodes would exist on different streaming services. Now, we do have the Earth Prime comic crossover, which is just more evidence that Superman does exist on the same Earth as all these other shows. Superman's a part of it. There's going to be a crossover issue at the end of it. All this is canon as well. It's been approved by other producers. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there and what's mentioned there, and then what connectivity is brought about because of it. But I think we won't get that crossover issue till like June or something like that. So that's a bit of a wait. Like, I think Superman and Lois will be done with season 2 by that point. But yeah, the crossover thing and just the connectivity as a whole with Superman and Lois and the Arrowverse is always a burning question, and it's just a wait and see. Like, we're never going to get your answers straight away. And as I said, it's not like the other shows reference each other all the time. You might be lucky if you get a handful per season. So we'll see what happens with Superman and Lois in the rest of season 2, but fingers crossed there is some opening up to connectivity later in the season. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you drop a like on it, show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on everything we went over and all that. I'm always curious to read what you guys are thinking. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.